As we've been reporting, President Trump is in Beijing for high-stakes meetings with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. President Trump last visited Beijing nearly a decade ago in 2017. This time around, the two are expected to discuss trade, the Middle East and Taiwan. China claims the self-governing island as part of its own territory. Last year, the U.S. approved an $11 billion arms sale to Taiwan. President Trump is now considering whether to follow that up with an additional $14 billion package. Jonathan Czin joins us now. He's a fellow at the Brookings Institution's China Center and a former senior China analyst at the CIA. Thank you so much for joining us. So what does China want from the U.S. when it comes to Taiwan?
Yeah, I think what they are really looking to do in this meeting is foreclose the possibility of another giant arms sale like what happened, as you mentioned at the outset, back in the fall, right after the two leaders met. China was very upset about that outcome, and I think they felt like it was very embarrassing for President Xi to have that engagement with President Trump, and then for really a historic arms sale to follow immediately on the heels of it.
What does that say when you have that type of money, $11 billion, $14 billion? Essentially, what is the U.S. strategy when it comes to Taiwan?
Well, the strategy for a long time, right, and what's mandated from Congress in the Taiwan Relations Act is that the U.S. government will provide for Taiwan's self-defense, right? And I think it's not just a question of the money. I think it's a question of the capability that is captured in those arms sale. And I would say the package that was put forward back in the fall was quite a good one, right? Because the PLA is a quite formidable force. They have been modernizing very rapidly over the last 20 years. It's the most rapid military modernization program, really, of any country since World War II.
President Trump says he doesn't need China's help when it comes to ending the war in Iran, but China can really play a significant role here. Can you explain that to our viewers?
They can. Since President Trump's maximum pressure campaign against Iran in his first administration, China has really become one of the chief buyers of Iranian oil. I think they purchased something like 90% of Iran's oil. But it's an asymmetric relationship. And I think that is going to be part of the challenge here for the Trump administration in getting China to exert pressure on Iran. China is much more important to Iran than Iran is to China. And I think China in many ways is reluctant to exercise any kind of pressure over Iran. And if they are going to, there will be a cost associated with that. They will look for some kind of commensurate concession from the Trump administration.
We have Iran, but then we have deals. You have some of the top business minds in the country also on this trip with the president. What else are you looking for when it comes to that part of this summit?
Yeah, I think what's really striking about it is just the fact that there is such a large business delegation, right? Just the optics of this feels like a throwback almost to the period before we were really focused on China as a great power rival. And it feels more like a moment from either the Clinton administration or the George W. Bush administration, where the focus really is very much on commerce and trade. And in President Trump's own words, trying to open China's market further for U.S. businesses. So it's a really striking shift. It's also a real shift in the context of the trade war that got underway almost exactly a year ago, right? Where the Trump administration was looking to remedy some of the trade imbalances in the relationship and really push China pretty hard to make reforms. Now we're much more focused on doing business with China.
All right. We're all awaiting to see what the end result is. Jonathan Czin, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.